All right, everybody, welcome back to Ask a Catholic Therapist. My name is Dr. Matt Bruninger, and today I'm joined by
Isaac Wicker.
and
I feel like
my man Isaac here is he's a therapist out of Minnesota, and Isaac and I met at the Catholic Psychotherapy Association conference. I don't know, back in April, and
yep.
have been working together and collaborating ever since. And we have an exciting episode this week because we want to talk about a program that we actually created together. We want to talk about a 12-week program that we developed that came out of a sort of a desire, a passion, and our knowledge and training. So, Isaac, tell people a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What you do?
I felt like that introduction. I was leaving my name on a voicemail recording.
Yeah, Isaac Wicker. Not available.
That's right. Tell them about me and what I do. Is that what you said?
Yeah, like how, I mean, so you're a therapist. How'd you get into it? How long you been practicing?
Yeah. So I've been in mental health since 2014. Um, but I've been technically a therapist since 2019. Um, so when I finished my bachelor's degree, so I went into college for my bachelor's degree, not sure I wanted to pursue mental health at all. Actually thought I wanted to be a writer. Um, and then that got lost along the way. I actually really love creative writing, but never pursued that. And then it became clearer and clearer what I really loved was being with people when they were in darkness.
Mm.
Um, that there was this, I had a lot of friends really struggle with mental health. I struggled with my own mental health. And there was this really profound difference that presence makes. Like I can just be with you. Like I remember one of my friends, I walked into her room when she was just really suicidal, really depressed, not engaging with anyone. I just started picking up knickknacks on her shelf and talking about them and like looking at the art on her wall and just engaging in this really simple conversation. And by the end of it, she was able to open up and share a lot of her sorrows. Um, but it was through just that simple presence. Like I'm here with you, I'm engaging, even if it's just the tiny knickknacks and the different plushies that you have and the books that you're reading um, and through that presence open up to greater vulnerability. And then within that vulnerability, we travel together,
Yeah.
trying to seek out fullness of life and healing. Um, so I did that after my bachelor's degree for 3 years with low income adults, just basically the people who get the worst of it, and loved it. Like I was drowning for the first year, don't get me wrong, but loved it. Um, and started developing more and more of my own theory, more of my own exercises, because these are people that have been stuck in the mental health system for 20 years. And so I was just like, nope, we're not staying stuck, and just pushed and pushed in a way that was just like, let's move, let's grow, let's live. And that's always been such a driving force for me. Like, let's live, let's go together, let's discover what's out there in life,
Mm.
even in these really dark places where you've been stuck for 20 years. And then I loved it so much. That's when I went and got my master's degree, um, and then came back. Actually, supervised a program for the low income adult program. Was a field supervisor for a while until COVID hit, and that's when I actually finally transitioned to um, working as an in office therapist. So I know the distinctions kind of all run together and they're a little weird, but um, yeah, been in mental health since 2014 and just love it.
And so, I mean, we met at this Catholic Psychotherapy Association, um, and at the time, you had developed a program called Whole Human Challenge,
Yeah.
and you were there to promote this program. And and we got chatting, and I flipped through the program, and I thought it was really neat, and I felt like I really wanted to collaborate, and I felt like from my end, you had a real talent for developing programs and coming up with exercises, and um, I had been working So to dive a little bit into what we're going to talk about, I've been interested for a very long time now in this idea of God attachment. And so for our viewers, parent-child attachment, right? Attachment is sometimes a buzzword in Catholic circles. A while back, there was a big movement among Catholic moms. They were like, oh, I do attachment parenting. And what they meant was like, I baby wear and co-sleep. Look, if you want to baby wear and co-sleep, go for it, right? But that is not attachment per se, right? Attachment at its heart is about felt security. And so what you have is you have a little child, a baby, who needs a caregiver to help them feel safe and secure, to feel protected, to help them regulate their emotions and feelings. Part of that's because they're small creatures and they can't defend themselves. Another part of that is because their brains are underdeveloped and they don't have the brain cortex regions that help regulate big feelings. And so adults serve as external regulators. So it's beautiful when you see a secure attachment. You see this child who's afraid, who's scared, who's threatened, sink into their caregiver, be embraced, be acknowledged, and you see them feel safe, calm, at ease, and then they're able to explore their environment. They're able to engage the world again. So it turns out secure attachments are associated with less anxiety, less depression, less behavioral problems. But these attachments also serve as templates for how we view other close relationships. So if you have a secure attachment to your parents, you're more likely to have a secure attachment to a romantic partner. If you have an avoidant or anxious attachment to a parent, you're more likely to have an avoidant or anxious attachment to a partner. So this is where it really got me. So it's an interesting thing. I sort of bring that stuff into therapy all the time, looking for like how people's view of attachment has shaped how they're acting in relationships now. But what really got me sort of academically, sort of intellectually, was when I read some articles by guys who were saying that our early childhood attachment serves as a template for how we actually attach to God. God is a caregiver. He's a divine caregiver. He's our father. And that as such, we can have an attachment to him. We should be able to feel secure. In times of threat or distress, we should be able to turn to God and feel safe and secure, feel regulated. With big feelings, with uncomfortable thoughts, with shameful thoughts, with embarrassing, we should be able to turn to him and feel like sink into him. And the template for that comes from our early childhood experiences. So here's what I realized. In working at religious institutions, so many people would tell you that they knew God was loving, but when you actually measured their God attachment, they didn't actually relate to God. They didn't feel like God was loving. They didn't relate to him from a place of security. And what struck me and what motivated me to really reach out to Isaac was I would have people come and say, Doc, I want to work on this, that, or the other. And what I realized was very often so many of the things that people wanted to work on were actually, and you said this once when we were talking, this captures it nicely. It was ways that they were trying to earn love. So many of their goals were things that they thought if they achieved, they would get what they think they needed. They would get attention, they would get validated. The way I tend to think about it is their goals were motivated by a desire to achieve security. If I have enough money, if I get a better job, I'll have money, then I'll feel good about myself. If I start hanging out with friends more, then I won't feel so low, then I'll feel good about myself.
Yeah.
What I realized was people weren't acting from a place of belovedness, that we're putting the cart before the horse. If we set goals, if we set tasks before we first firmly established that we're beloved, that is the starting place. And so I had this idea that I wanted to create a program that helped people experience their belovedness, their identity as beloved sons and daughters. And when I bumped into Isaac was doing these programs, and it felt like there was just this providential moment. And so that's what we've been working on. I mean, for the past 6 months, or so we've been really putting our heads to this program.
Yeah.
How do we help people who are probably, mostly if you ask them, well catechized Catholics who would say God is love, God is merciful, all things work to the good for those who love God. They would say all the right things, but they'd be right here, like deep down, don't feel like he's a safe father. And so we turned our attention to trying to create a program to do this, to help people feel beloved. So that's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about that program. We want to bring people into it. So, Isaac, maybe tell me a little bit about maybe why you think this might be important, or what you think about this sort of topic and from your own work.
Yeah. Can I just take the attachment stuff that you're talking about, um,
Yeah.
try to simplify it?
Yes.
Because I always like to put things into like action terms for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so what you're saying about attachment is, and like maybe like as a way to test it is when I'm distressed, where do I go?
Yeah. 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 Yep.
If I'm distressed, feeling overwhelmed, feeling scared, where do I go? Um, do I go to my parents? Do I go to my spouse? Do I go to this friend? Um, and just while you're thinking of it, I was thinking of so many different people. I was like, where do people go when they're distressed? Um, and like what came up over and over again is their phones,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
pornography. They go
Yes.
to uh,
Alcohol.
just alcohol. They go to distractions. They go to work out. Like not that all of these are like bad coping skills. Like we kind of live in a culture that talks about coping a lot, um, but it's like where do I bring my distress? And so much of us, so many of us, we don't even think to bring it into any relationship.
Yeah. Yes.
Like that I'm
Yes.
distressed, I actually need to isolate more. I need to contain myself more. I need to regulate myself. And so this idea of attachment to God is so foreign to us because we don't even know what attachment to other people means when
I
we're
know.
distressed.
I know. Yeah,
Like
the
I
four marks. You're right. I should say the four marks that are commonly thought of with attachment to see if there's a secure attachment. The first mark is in times of threat or distress, it's proximity seeking. You should want to be close to the person you're attached to. The second is viewing them as a safe haven, because there's a type of attachment, anxious attachment. You could want to be close to somebody, but then when you are close to them, you don't experience them as calming. So it's you seek proximity, you experience them as a safe haven, you use them as a base for exploration, that they feel safe enough that you can like look back and say, hey, you're there. Okay, I'm gonna go
Mhm,
try, I'm gonna take risks, I'm gonna try stuff. And then
mhm.
the last is separation anxiety. It's good to feel the tension when you're away from this person. You should feel some tension if it's a secure attachment. But you're right, that first one, that's a nice way of, it's like the first mark is, where do you turn? Who do you turn to?
Yeah, and it can even be in simple things. Like I was talking with a friend a while back, and she had drifted away from her faith, and we were talking about how she started to come back. And she was on a canoe trip, and there was a big storm coming, and they were trying to get back to safety, and they capsized the canoe, and they had to like they were close enough to the island they were on to drag it back and
Mhm.
um, put it put it up back right. But then she just like sat in the middle of the canoe, hunkered down while her partner was rowing, and just prayed the entire time back. Like she just said Hail Marys the entire time back, and she hadn't prayed in I don't know how long. But there was something like even that, like I'm terrified.
Yeah,
Even if it's like the last resort, I think to go to God.
yeah,
Like there's actually some attachment there. Um,
yes,
and so where I think this is important I actually don't focus as explicitly on attachment stuff um, in my work, but I focus a lot on the relationship aspect of things. So I guess I do focus on attachment stuff without the words generally,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
talking about actually all of our emotions are relational. That if I'm angry, that's like that brings me into relationship. If I'm sad, it brings me into relationship. If I'm happy, like all of our emotions are designed to be relational in some way.
Mhm.
Even if anger makes me kind of confront you, it makes me
Relational.
it makes me relate to you. If I'm sad, I want to be held. If I'm scared, I want to be protected, or I want to call for help. Um, that all of our emotions are designed to be relational. And so where do they get stuck? Where do they not become relational?
Mhm.
Um, and we start to close in on ourselves or distrust ourselves in like these really deep pieces, right? Um, and then what we can't share often becomes shame, or what we share and is rejected turns into shame and self-hatred. And um, so relationship is so foundational for how we value ourselves,
Yeah.
um, how we operate in the world. We like to think of like American independence, where it's just like I'm at my peak, I'm supposed to be independent and strong and be able to like in mental health terms like cope with the distress that's in the world. But that's not actually true to any Christian understanding. That at the peak we are most closely resembling the Trinity, which is constant relationship, which
Yeah.
is relationship at my core. Um, which like the Father loves the Son, and then the Son knows himself in the Father's love and reflects back that love to the Father. Um, and so I feel like I'm kind of getting off
No,
because this is such a big topic, but that we our confusion often comes to seeing relationship as weakness
yeah.
and as a shortcoming to the growth we still need to have. But actually, usually the woundedness and the shortcoming is our inhibition, our fear of relationship.
No, that's beautiful. You see it, hopefully you see it. If you have kids or if you know people with kids, when you see a little child who's I see this with all of my kids, but if they're afraid, if they have a bad dream, they're distressed, they come running in and they jump in my arms, right? And the at least traditionally, the literature suggests that the way you form a secure attachment is you give attuned, empathic, and consistent care. Attune, I see what you actually need. I respond with warmth and empathy, and I respond consistently. Um, and when you see this with kids, it's sort of, but it's not just with things that are fearful. I'll see it when my daughter's angry. Like if she has a secure attachment to me, she can bring her. That means she can bring her anger to me and know that she won't be rejected.
Yeah,
It'll be met with, I know what it's like to be angry too. I feel angry when I don't get dessert before dinner. I get it. Like part of cultivating a secure attachment is letting my kids know that their feelings, that I can hold and handle their feelings.
yeah,
Our relationship is a safe place for those feelings to be. Even if I need to help correct them or educate the feeling,
yeah,
you can, I want to see you. I don't want to reject parts or pieces of you.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, one of the most shut down clients I've ever worked with. She was so smart and just like intellectually, she understood everything. Like she knew so much psychology,
hmm,
but like absence of emotions.
yeah.
Um, and we started getting into it, and she said every time she had big emotions, she was put into her room until she didn't have the big emotions anymore. Then she could come out and rejoin the family. So like
Yeah.
the cost of belonging was no emotions. You can't
Yes.
have big emotions because big emotions disrupt what I'm trying to do, and I don't have the time or space for your big emotions. So you shut those down, and then we're gonna show you that you have to shut them down by shutting you down, shutting you away.
Yes.
Like you're actually cast out
Yes.
because of big emotions, and you're only received back when you have no emotion.
It's a perfect example. Yep.
Yeah. And so this person was just like could function well in like achievement oriented things, but in relationships was suffering.
Yeah.
And then anytime we hit on a real emotion in therapy, even just a little bit, she'd just start crying. Like that
Mm.
there was so much in there. There was so much in there for so long
Yeah.
that she just needed, like wanted, desired to be seen in there.
Yes. I think so often, not always, but so often too in those cases, achievement becomes a proxy for trying to get my relational needs met. If I can't be seen or known,
Hmm.
by showing you these real parts of me, maybe I can get some of your attention by achieving. Like
Hmm.
it's better than nothing. It's a way of being somewhat seen. Um, I say this, maybe I've said this before to you, but there's something called the central relational paradox, which is we want to be known and seen deeply, but we're so afraid that if you see me, you'd leave me.
Yeah.
And the problem as parents is I unintentionally communicate that to my kids all the time. I unintentionally communicate
Yeah.
like, nope, I don't want that part. I don't want to
Hmm.
see that right now. And hopefully, right, I catch it and I repair. But I know there's times I miss it, and I I communicate something similar to what your client experienced. And so that's huge, man. That's a driving, I mean, to allow people to know that they are known. I mean, that really, that name, I think we came across, we stumbled upon, we emerged with a beautiful name for the program, known, embraced by the heart of the Father. But that
Hmm.
first word, I mean, that word kicks. Um, because so much of this security is to feel the safety, to feel the sense that we are truly known,
Yeah.
like through and through.
Yeah. And just like even right now, you can observe your own reaction to that word known. Like I like even where I'm at right now is like there's part of me that gets anxious, that moves, that like squirms around a little bit and being like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
known, like, oh, okay. Um, and like just you watching what's your reaction to known, to being known, or to the invitation to be known? Like I think there's so many different ones, just like complete skepticism, or fear, or anger, or like that a lot comes up when we think of actually being known.
Yeah.
um
Probably very often because of our experiences of being known in the past. And
mhm,
part of what, maybe not the whole, but part of what conditions our reaction to that word, um, is who we think we're being known by. Like the quality of the person who knows us. Are they safe? Do they want what's best for me? Can they handle and hold all of me?
yeah,
Are they going to take the things they see and try to tell me, don't be that way, don't do that? Like, how does the person who knows me, how are they going to hold what they know?
yeah. And that's why I think it's such an honor to be a therapist, and also such a responsibility, because I've worked with so many people where I'm pretty sure I'm the one that knows them the best
Yeah.
in their entire life. I've worked
Mhm.
with them like I'm like I've been working with you for 6 months, and I think I know you better than anybody you've ever else than anybody else. And, like I've taken
Yeah.
time, and like I've really invested in knowing you. And so if you're going to open up that space of vulnerability, that's huge. That's a huge honor and a huge responsibility, um, to let me go there.
Yeah,
Um, and then my reaction matters a lot. Um, like that's where you can do a lot of healing and a lot of damage.
for sure.
Um, so it's just powerful. to be known and to let someone else know you. Like there's always freedom there too. That's another beautiful thing just about being known is there's freedom in letting you know me. Um, and God respects that freedom. Even though he knows us through and through, he also like respects where we're at and what we're opening up and when we're opening it up. And yeah.
Let me ask you this. So what do you think? What do you think the downsides? What are there any harms to somebody not knowing that they're beloved? Like by God, by God. Let's say, but like maybe somebody's listening and they think, I don't know, man. Like, I know intellectually, I've read the catechism. I know that God, I don't feel it, but so what? I mean, what's the big deal about me not feeling loved by God? What's the big deal about me not feeling safe and secure in my relationship with him?
Seems like you're giving me an easy question and a hard question at the
Yeah,
same time.
I think superficially it seems easy, but
Um,
I think it's maybe not.
you're there's just so much there. My initial reaction is that you're missing out. Like that there's actually a lot more life to be had and a lot more adventure to be had in being known. Um, I like Bishop Aaron talks about pride being boring and humility being exciting. And the way he talks about it is like with pride, I'm stuck in my own track, in my own little mind, in my own little world, in my own efforts. In humility, I I become part of the story that God wants to tell in the world. I become part of salvation history. I become part of the adventure that God is imagining, that God is imagining specifically for me, that He's created from the beginning of time to fit me, to fit who I am. Um, and so I've had friends, like I've always been drawn more to atheists. Like I remember in high school being kind of distant from like the super happy Christians. I was like, I don't really trust how happy you're being right now. I'm gonna go more with the people who've got big questions and are trying to figure out life. Um, because I was like really drawn to the big questions of Christianity. And so I've wrestled with that exact thing of like, can you be fully alive and not be Christian? Like, is there fullness of life outside of Christ? Because I've met some really amazing people who seemed alive and um, became good friends with them and wrestled with them with these questions. And what I've seen, even just in a short amount of years, those people dry out. Like that there's a initial impetus of like I want to live, expand, and have big questions and travel the world and you talk to them a few years later and they're dried out.
Mm,
Like even as they're still like trying to live and push, like their internal motor is just like settled down and dried out. Um, and so I don't know if I'm answering your
yeah,
question
you are.
that well, but like the what you're missing out on is real life, is real full life. Like what Jesus says is, I've come that so that they may have life and have it to the full. And we get to start, like, I always challenge people to take him seriously, challenge him with his own words. Like, say, okay, you want me to have full life? Give me full life. I want that.
Yeah,
Like, show me that. I'm in for it. What needs to happen?
yeah,
Draw me into that. I want these things that you're offering. I want peace. I want joy. I want love. I want justice. So what do you mean? Like put him to the test. Don't let him get off easy.
yeah,
But say like, what do you mean, Lord, that my life can actually be full life, that I can have 100 times more life here and then eternal life in heaven, that we can actually push into Him. Like again, make it relational.
yeah.
Um, So I'd say that that's my first reaction, but there's so much more to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems an important question. I mean, we've developed this program because it seems like we both think that it's not just superfluous. It's not just like, hey, it's like a nice secondary thought to this seems foundational to me.
Yeah,
To know that you're beloved, to feel like you're embraced by the Father. I think one thing for me, so I second everything you say. Another thing that it does is we don't, how to say this, like who we are, how we experience, like our sense of self, our identity is in some ways given to us. And what I mean by that is um, we need, we can't see ourselves clearly very well, and especially not as young children. We don't have the ability to sort of uh, think about ourselves in complex terms. And so what we need is we need somebody to reflect back to us our goodness and our identity. We need somebody to show us what they see. And so when I look at my mom, how does she look at me? Does she look at me like I'm a prized, cherished, beloved, like creature that she desires? Or does she look at me with annoyance? Does she look at me like I'm a nuisance? Does she look at me like dismissively or constantly with anger? Or in some ways, I get my sense of self given to me by those outside of me.
yeah,
And this to me seems important because my truest identity lies in deep in the heart of the Blessed Trinity. And to know who I am, to experience myself really is to allow myself first and foremost to be like to have that goodness reflected back to me by the
yeah,
Father. And so I worry, but a big worry of mine, a big concern, something I think I see is that people who don't know that they're known and seen and loved and cherished, they don't think God is safe. So they never relate to him in a way that allows God to speak these things to them. They never fully touch their identity, that they're always having to create it. They're always having to like make it themselves
yeah,
rather than have their very goodness and be reflected back to them. They make themselves desirable or attractive or with how much money they make and what kind of clothes they wear and how funny they are, how smart they are, and these I think are all ways to try to get people to like affirm us.
yeah. And then there's always anxiety there. There's
Yeah,
always
always,
insecurity.
always.
Um, and I want to throw out one more thing with this topic of why it's so important. Because I've also worked with a lot of people who see themselves as worthless, and they actually aren't, like, their own worth isn't enough of a motivation.
Yeah.
Like, self-care, the idea of self-care. Why would I take care of myself? I'm a piece of shit. Like, I'm worthless.
Yes.
I don't matter. Why
Yes.
would I spend resources on me?
Yes.
Um, and what's important with this, like, first of all, that's just very sad. And there's another element that's like you being whole is good for others. Like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
so much of the reason I can see my clients and begin to love them is because I've been seen and loved. And so I can meet them and reach them in their anguish because I've been met and reached. And like that there's and that not only that, but like I'm participating in the life of God. I'm participating in the love of God who desires these people, who
Yeah.
desires to know them and bring them to fullness. And so I've often pitched self-care of like, okay, you can't do this for yourself, but self-care is a way of loving. That like you taking care of yourself is good for your kids, it's good for your spouse, it's good for your friends. It's um So if you think of the person you love the most and you want to love them more, like your healing matters.
Yeah.
Your knowing that there's infinite value in you and there's meaning to life and there's a point to suffering. Like that matters for the people that you love. It matters in how you interact with them. It also matters just in how you're able to show life happening. You're able to show what fullness of life means, what healing means. You can lead the way. Um, and so for some people that can't be motivated for themselves because they're so convinced, they're so stuck in their own sense of being worthless. There's their wounds there, and there's so much brokenness there. What's beautiful about people is if we show up at all, we always love a little bit. Like that, there's
Yeah.
people we love. There's people we're willing to sacrifice for. Um, and some of the people I worked with who thought that they're worthless have been some of the best people at loving as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Um, like I worked with people who've been suicidal for years, and every day they stay alive out of love. They're like, I can't do this to my family. I need to take care of my child. Life every day for me is suffering, and I don't understand it, but I will stay here to love. And that's for me is beautiful and heart wrenching, where it's just like that there is that love in the world where there's the most darkness.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Do you think sort of, let's see, we have like 10 minutes left. Do you think how do what should people know about this program? Like, I want to give people a little bit of an overview, what
Yeah,
to expect. I would say this, and we want, even if you have a pretty good relationship with the Father, I think this program is about allowing us to experience the Father's love anew. Um, it's about going deeper into our relationship with the Father. We can always go deeper, always, always. So whether you're sort of feeling really distant, avoidant, and anxious, or whether you already have some relationship with the Father, but it feels maybe stale or stagnant.
yeah,
Um, but what's the structure like? What can people expect?
yeah. So I'm gonna avoid your question at first and then get into it. The first thing I want to mention is that it's honest. Like it's really raw and real.
Yeah,
That there are too many programs that try to just pretend
yeah,
and stick with like God loves you,
yeah,
and you never look at the fact that life sucks sometimes and it
yeah,
really hurts and
yeah,
there's a lot of wounds and why is there evil? And so like we talk about secure attachment and we can see that with people, we can see insecure attachment. But when we start thinking about God, it gets really confusing really quickly. Because we're just like, but it hurts so much sometimes. What do you mean God loves me? And
yeah,
then if we can't reconcile that, we think, oh, it must be my lack of ability to see his love or my lack of holiness. And so we put the blame on ourselves, or we put the blame on God, being like, he must not really love at all, or his love must be mean, or devastating. And so it gets really confusing because life, like we talk about God as if things are really clear and straightforward, like he's love all the time. He knows everything. He's all powerful. He's a father. Like we talk about those truths in like a pure, simple
yeah.
form, as if it's like clear in our life.
Which is
Like, oh
weird
yeah,
because the Christian symbol is a man hanging dead
yeah,
on a cross. I mean that's like
yeah,
God loves, and yet I mean, there's a lot of suffering there. There's a lot of hurt there. There's some darkness. My God, why have you forsaken me? Like this is
yeah,
it's not just you sort of unicorns and rainbows, right?
yeah. And, and so what we're really honest with this program, not just like how confusing and complicated. We're not just like asking you to make this big jump and then be fine with that. Um, and like when you're talking about the cross, I had a revelation about it a few years ago. I was looking at the cross and I said that the cross is the best definition of myself because it shows how messed up I am that
Mm.
because of my sin, God ends up dying. And it also shows how beloved I am that God, who didn't need to, died, who like came. And I don't live as if either of those are true. I
Yeah.
don't live as if I'm that messed up, and I don't live as if I'm that loved.
Yeah.
Um, when that actually both are true, and like that, it gives freedom to know that even I'm that messed up. Like there's brokenness that runs so deep in me. There's corruption that runs so deep in me. There's woundedness that runs so deep in me that God had to die. That was the solution to me. But
Yeah.
yet that I'm so loved that it was worth it. That like he desired it with his full heart. He desired me with his full heart to bring healing. Um, so I can actually talk about the details. I mean, I like getting into the the vision of it more,
Yeah.
but so it's 12 weeks, and the first 6 weeks, it's a trajectory that we go pretty deep
Yeah.
into that honest place of where your heart is at.
Yeah. This program, we should, yeah, I think it's fair. Maybe to emphasize again, this is, first of all, it's work.
Hmm.
This program is work. Um, it is going to ask you to do homework each week, to write, to journal, to reflect, to put
Yep.
pen to paper, and to go into the past, to go into feelings, to go into thoughts and memories, and to look at them honestly.
Hmm.
This is work. This isn't just it's not just a sort of a teaching core. We teach you something, you say, "Oh yeah, great. Now I know that. Great."
Yeah.
We do ask you to do work
Yeah.
and put yourself in a position where God can show up and meet you with the truth of who he is.
Yeah. So yeah, we throughout the 12 weeks we meet with we have a group call once a week where we're doing coaching, we're um, teaching, we're engaging with the content. Um, and we do that once a week and it's recorded. So if you miss that live call, you can always join it or watch it later. But the bigger work actually is the what you're doing throughout the week. We have a routine. It's called the Silent Night routine. Um, and in that routine, we ask you to make space for silence. It's 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. 3 nights a week, no technology, and then hitting 9 p.m. no electric lights. So we call it candlelight mode. And so what this does is it takes us away from all of the distractions we put between us and relationship. We put between us and ourselves. So relationship with ourselves, relationship with others, relationship with God. We're again, when I talked about attachment, where do people go when they're distressed? To their phones. Um,
Mhm.
we say, okay, no, let's where else can you go? And so you open the space, and at first it can be really painful because you have to engage with yourself, which
Yes.
so much of our lives is spent avoiding or
Mm.
distracting from ourselves because our hearts hurt.
Yes.
Um, and so we connect with ourselves with this routine. We have journaling prompts which guide that connection to ourselves, and then that space to connect with others. Um, so with this silence, it doesn't mean you have to not talk at all. You can have friends over and not be on your phones and not be
Yeah.
watching movies, and you can be have your friends over and have a candlelight or a bonfire, um, and then to connect with God, to really tell him what's up, and why you're so mad at him, or why it hurts so much, or why you're scared of him. Um, and that those first 6 weeks is probably the most like work of it, where you're really digging in and you're saying, no, this hurts, Lord. this,
Yeah.
this really hurts. um, and then we have different, like we've just created a lot of space for the Father to work, for you and the Father to connect. It's not as much about us healing you. And
No.
maybe it's not at all about us healing you, but we've created a structure. We've created a program for you to engage the Father and yourself differently.
Yeah.
And think of the 12 weeks as like a lifestyle shift. Um, and then what's awesome is we then take this deep transformative healing from the first 6 weeks and bring it out into living like a child, living childlike belovedness. And so we get into, by the end of the program, we're getting into like playfulness and like
Mhm.
delighting in life and delighting in the Father and letting the Father delight in you. And
Yeah.
so it's a really beautiful trajectory to go into the sorrow, but the sorrow never is the end.
Yeah.
There's always Easter, and so we get to delight in freedom and joy.
Yeah. Unless you become like little children, cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. Um, I want to say this too. So, look, I think this program has it's been the fruit of prayer, of personal experience, of our knowledge of psychology and counseling. But I also think we want this. We put a ton of time and effort into it. It's an intensive process to go through that we're present with you for. So there's a price tag. Um, and so I think it's $289 for 12 weeks. Which is, I realize that's not an insignificant amount of money, but broken up over 12 weeks, I think it's manageable if you were to sort of average it out. And um,
Yeah, my wife did a 12-week program that was $3,000. So,
yeah,
like,
yeah, that's
yeah,
right. It's like, yeah, it's way under what, say, you would charge to see us like therapeutically,
yeah,
Um, but we want to make it, I think this is really important. And Isaac and I feel very sort of, I think, passionate about this, that if you feel called to do this program, and this is how we've approached it, and this is, I think, where we're one thing that is a sort of another confirmation of our work together is we're on the same page about this sort of stuff. If you feel like you're called to do this program, we do not want money to be a barrier for you. So if you say, guys, I can only pay 50%, there it is, no questions asked. You tell us that, we'll send you that code. If you say, guys, I feel like God's calling me to do this and I can't pay a penny, I cannot pay a lick, that's fine. You tell us that, we'll send you the code. We have a price tag because it costs us time away from our family, effort, energy, resources, right? Subscriptions and this sort of thing. But we also really think that God wants to touch and heal people's fear and anxiety and avoidance of him. And we think we have a tool, we have a piece that can help with that. And we don't want to price people out of that. So we want you to be honest with us. And if this is something you want to do and you can't afford it, so be it. If this is something you can support us in, then thank you.
yeah,
We also really believe in this product too. We think that this is really good. And so much of it, explicitly or implicitly, it has it's not just stuff we've made up either. It is rooted in principles of psychology. These are exercises and things that if you were to dig deep, you could articulate why I think some of these things work, what the sort of psychology behind them is. And so it's not just like we're not just making this stuff up either, right? It does come out of a place of, I think, experience, learning, and prayer. But ultimately, I mean, to wrap up, I really think I'm excited. I mean, I would love to see this program everywhere.
yeah,
And I think my own experience, I work with a lot of very Catholic people. And what I've found is that these very Catholic people, very good people, very devout people, when you scratch the surface of their hearts, they oftentimes have an anxious or avoidant attachment to God.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're so devout precisely because they're afraid that if they aren't, God won't love them anymore. God won't, right? God would abandon them. There's so much fear driving. So,
And one thing with that too is like, so my mom worked through this program, um, and she's actually one of the holier people that I know, and has spent her whole life like really growing in love for Jesus. But when she started talking about the Father, there's actually a shift in her. She
yeah,
found that she loved Jesus and would like have no problem relating to him, but that when she was like thinking about God the Father, her first thought was like, why does it matter? Like,
yeah,
why does the Father matter? And then like realizing that there was actually a lot of fear there, and through the program was she was telling me that a lot of wounds that she didn't know need to be healed or that she'd forgotten about, or that she was just like, I'm past that. We're opened up to heal.
yeah,
And like she glows now. It's actually amazing. Like the just the transformation when I was like, I wouldn't even have pictured her as necessarily somebody who needed this program.
yes,
And the life, the glowing that she has now is actually remarkable. And she's written me several times, handwritten letters to thank me
that's
and like
beautiful.
just express gratitude that I've created this program, that we're doing this, that we're putting this on.
That's beautiful.
And that goes back to partly why the price tag is like, this is what we want to do. This is
Yeah,
like we have so many more ideas. We want
yes,
to like we want to dig into this, into all these other program ideas. We want to make like I want to make this what I do for my life, and I
yes,
want to share this with so many people. And that takes an engine, that takes work. Like I want this to be able to grow and live and reach people.
yeah,
Um,
same. Heck yeah, same.
so even if you're not going to sign up for this, like at least check out our website
Yep,
and let people know.
yeah.
Like,
Share it with somebody who might benefit.
yeah, or just like post it on social media. Like we think there's a big need. Help us reach people. Like that's the biggest way you can help us is okay, if this matches you or not, it's okay. But like help us reach people. Help us meet the people who need this.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I'll put a link to the landing page for the program in the description. Again, please share liberally. If you can't afford the price tag, you let us know what you can afford,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and we will work with you with whatever you can do. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask.
Mm-hmm.
This is, after all, Ask a Catholic Therapist. And as always, man, it's good talking to you. It's good to see your
Yeah,
passion about this stuff. And
yeah.
uh,
It's awesome. And we're actually trying to do stuff on Instagram, even though I don't really know how social media works.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's another thing is like if we have like 15 more ideas about different programs we want to create. So if you even just like want to stay connected with us, like
yeah,
we've been talking about doing one on motivation and um, like just different
yeah,
smaller
yes.
programs and courses. We just did one on Advent. So if you're interested in just staying connected, social
Yeah.
media is like our Instagram is another place.
Yeah, so I now have an Instagram. It's Ask a Catholic Therapist. Isaac and I, for these programs, have an Instagram called Soul and Psych. And so,
Periods in between each word, soul, period, and period, psych.
soul period and period psych period.
Not period after
Not
psych.
period, soul period and period psych. As the kids say, smash that like button, smash that follow button. Uh,
Know what those kids are
that's
saying.
what they're saying, man.
Well,
And yeah, follow us. And look, if you have ideas, man, share your ideas with us. Share your
yeah.
passion with us. Share your stories with us. Share your
Mhm.
experience with us. This is what we want to hear. This is what we love doing. And we want to be able to walk with people on this journey and deepen people's relationships with the Father. And um, anyway, set the
All
world
right.
on fire. So, hey,
Beautiful.
I'll see you. And we'll see, hopefully, all of you out there. If you have any questions, reach out, askacatholictherapist@gmail.com, and stay tuned for more great videos and content.
All right, take care, Matt. God
Peace.
bless.